All right, good morning, colleagues. It is, there we go. It is 9:02. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Lifestyle and Community Committee meeting. It's, of course, round 824. I think we're joined by still our Acting Mayor? No. Okay, by our Deputy Mayor, Donna Gates. Good to have you here. Who else do we have? The whole gang, really. Councillor O'Neill? Back. Councillor Young? Ready for action. Councillor Tozer, my neighbour. Councillor Lacastra, my neighbour. Yes. A defender of koalas and golf estates, Councillor Belden Lumsden, good to have you here. Councillor Caldwell. Morning. How are those courts at Runaway Bay going? Still waiting for action. All right, well, maybe some questions.
He's stitching you up.
Councillor Gates have already thrown some props too. Councillor Owen Jones, Facebook. Councillor Hamill, finer choice in polo. How are you going?
May the force be with you, Chair.
Thank you. We've got an enemy in common, I think. So would Minister Bailey be the Sith Lord? Yeah.
I was thinking more Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, edgy. Wow, I like that actually. All right, anyway, it is 9:03 now. Thanks for your indulgence there. We have a few items today that are starred on the agenda. They include 5.1, 6.1, 6.2 and 7.1. I understand we might have to unstar 7.1 to deal with declaration, so that'll be unstarred. We have 5.1. Councillors, any questions on 5.1, or are you happy for that to remain starred? All right, well, that'll remain. 6.1, LAW program additions. All right, we'll leave that starred. Proposal to name Field 2 at Merv Craig Park, Currumbin Waters.
Chair, can I just unstar that, just to actually move it and speak to it? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. We've got two conflict of interest declarations. Item 4, confirmation of minutes. Any questions on those, councillors? No, so we'll star that. I'll star. And Gold Coast Tourist Parks investment plans and update, we will leave that unstarred. All right, so let's deal with the starred items, which will be item 3, item 5.1, item 6.1. Someone like to move the starred items? Councillor Tozer, seconded by Councillor Lacastra. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. We'll allow our very capable secretarial minute-taking team to catch up with our recording of that vote. Did you capture that? Oh, well, quicker than I could pick up on. Councillors, we're now dealing with item 4, which is our conflict of interest declarations. And sorry, obviously our director, who I didn't acknowledge before, Director Twine. Good to have you here as well. Item
Good
4,
morning.
Councillor Gates, I understand you've got 2 DCIs.
They both relate to the same item, which is a leasing opportunity at Stewarts Road, Ormeau. Colliers International was appointed by Council as the leasing agent, and I'd like to declare that on the 6th of the 9th, 2016, Colliers donated $1,250 to my election campaign. But I'm seeking permission to participate in making a decision about the matter. But I want councillors to know before they vote on that I have another declaration in relation to the people who lease that land wanting to continue with it, and it's A. Keith and Company, who also operate as Rocky Point Mulching, and I have received $1,850 in 2014, $390 in 2015 and $1,170 in 2016. So I need to make that declaration separately, but I wanted the councillors to know there are 2 before they take the vote on the first one, seeking permission to remain in the room.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gates. Councillors, any questions for Councillor Gates? Someone have an appetite to move a procedural motion? Councillor Tozer.
I'm going to move that. Councillor Gates should participate. What's the standard wording? I'm trying to get my head back in the game. That Councillor Gates' participation in the matter will not undermine public trust in the decision-making process
They currently lease it, don't they?
due to the time lapsed since the donation.
We'll just wait for those words on the screen.
So what is it? Yeah, would not undermine due to the time lapsed since the donation. Yeah.
It's already happened, hasn't it? We're just endorsing it.
So I just heard in the background, Councillor Caldwell, I think, had a question of Councillor Gates, which I think is worth
Of course.
putting into the public realm because it may better inform the words that Councillor Tozer has to explain
Yeah.
reasons why Councillor Gates may
Thank you, Councillor.
or should remain in the room. And that is
I just
talking to
merely sought some clarification because I thought I'd heard Councillor Gates say that she received the donation from the lessee, which she said she did.
What I'd heard was that we're dealing with a matter where the deal's already been executed. And
Well, I wasn't going to limit my context for what
please.
was going on. So that was the first question, was
Yes.
just clarifying that I'd heard that correctly. And then I asked a question which I probably can't talk about in open.
Sure.
And then the third part was that we are effectively endorsing something that's already been done.
Yes. So I think that's a really important point, and Councillor Tozer, with the benefit of that third point, do you think that's worth including in your procedural motion?
Yes.
Councillor Gates.
Include, please, for the benefit of councillors, that I've had no contact this term with either Colliers nor the people that are wishing to lease the, continue leasing the land.
And I picked that up from your reasons for wanting to remain in the room there, which reads that I've had no contact with Colliers International during the current term of council. I'm very comfortable with that. So, Councillor Tozer, if we can turn our attention back to your procedural motion, it currently reads, Councillor D. Gates may participate in the decision despite the councillor's conflict of interest because it will not undermine the decision-making process due to the time elapsed since receiving the donation.
And I don't know. Let me think of some words here.
Well,
We're trying to do
and the nature of the decision is simply to...
operational matter, or the decision effectively having been executed. But am I right in saying that the lease has already been executed?
Tony, is that correct?
No, this is an extension of the lease, but an extension of the current people that are leasing those facilities.
So help me understand, are we acknowledging a decision that's already been made by officers, or are we endorsing a path forward?
No, you're endorsing a path forward to renew the lease.
So I don't think we can add that anymore. I think we just have to say since receiving the donation.
Okay, great. So full stop after donation. And do I have a seconder for that motion?
Oh, look out.
Councillor O'Neill. Councillors, any further questions? No, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those... Oh. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to... Well, I have to call a division. Yes, Councillor Castro.
Just a question through you to Councillor Gates.
Sorry, Councillor Gates, we have a question.
Sorry,
from
just
Councillor
through
Castro.
you to Councillor Gates. What was the month of the donation? So does it fall without?
Yes, it does. It's 6 years ago. It was in November. Sorry.
So we're just voting on Colliers.
Yes.
Just Colliers.
Okay.
It was 6 years ago on the 6th of the 9th, more than 6 years ago, $1,250.
All right, got it.
So to be clear, Councillor Gates is making two DCOIs.
Yes.
The first relates to the real estate agent involved in
That's
potential
right.
extension
No, I've got it. Yeah.
of the deal. So any decision that we make regarding this DCOI does not have to strictly inform your voting for the second DCOI, which you might take a different view. All right, so we have a move in, Councillor Tozer, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. I'll just read that out again. Councillor Gates may participate in the decision despite the councillor's conflict of interest because it will not undermine the decision-making process due to the time elapsed since receiving the donation. Councillor Tozer, did you want to speak to that? No. Councillor O'Neill? No. And I'll just put on the record that because we're dealing with the real estate agent as opposed to the actual lessee, I'm happy to support this procedural motion. Any speakers against? No, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Belden-Lumsden, Councillor De Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Vorster. Those against? That's carried. And if we could record that Councillor Gates did not vote. All right, councillors, we're now dealing with a second DCOI. And just for clarity, Councillor Gates, would you mind just explaining who this party is, just so we can reset our thinking in the room?
This is A. Keith and Company, who also operate Rocky Point Mulching, and they are the current lessee of the land, and they have applied for an extension to that lease. And on the 30th of the 10th, 2014, I had a donation of $1,850 from A. Keith and Co. On the 6th of the 10th, 15, $390 from Rocky Point Mulching. And on the 14th of the 9th, 2016, $1,170 from Rocky Point Mulching. And the same circumstances exist, that I have had no contact during the current term of council with A. Keith and Co. or Rocky Point Mulching.
And so, Councillor Gates, just for clarity's sake, that 1,170, that portion falls within the relevant period and the rest outside?
Correct.
Okay.
So, councillors, now we're dealing with the lessee, who I imagine was seeking extension.
Did anyone have any further questions or have an appetite to move a procedural motion?
Question. Are they actually the same entity, or are they separate? I mean, I've got here that A. Keith and Co. Proprietary Limited trades as Rocky Point Proprietary Limited. Is that the same company as Rocky Point Mulching, or are they different?
Yes.
As far as I know, they're the same.
Same company. And so what are the limitations in relation to it being in the immediate prior term?
If it had been a donation of $2,500, I would have what's called a prescribed interest. But it's still in the relevant term, that $1,170, so consideration needs to be given in that regard.
So it doesn't meet the definition for a prescribed interest, but it must be declared. Yeah, yeah, great. I'm happy to move the same as before, the same item or the same wording.
So,
and due to the time lapsed and the size of the donation.
In what respect? The relative small size?
It doesn't meet the threshold for being a prescribed interest.
Okay.
I don't want to add that, but that's the reason I've used the word size of the donation.
All right, so Councillor Tozer has a procedural motion that he proposes to move, which Councillor Gates may participate in the decision despite the councillor's conflict of interest, because it will not undermine the decision-making process due to the time lapsed since receiving the donation and the size of the donation. Do you want to perhaps clarify, Councillor Tozer, it's donations and the size of the donations?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. You happy to second that, Councillor O'Neill? All right. It's got a mover and a seconder. Any further questions, councillors?
So, yeah. Sorry, I wasn't going to particularly pull it out for attention, but Councillor Gates has made some comments to me which I feel like I need to explain. That being a number of things. The party that's given the donation is actively engaged in now continuing to do business with the city, and I don't feel comfortable about that. The second thing is that I've thought long and hard about this bit about, you know, I haven't had any discussions with these people on this matter, which maybe that goes to some extent of the explanation as to the level of influence that someone may or may not have. But to me, the donation of itself is the effective point of the relationship that we need to be judging. And so I am only concerned about the amounts of $1,850, $390 and $1,170, which is the donations that have been made to Councillor Gates by the people that are currently actively trying to enter a lease on council land. And so on that basis, I gave Councillor Gates the courtesy of saying that I won't support it because I have concerns. She then said, well, something's changed about you, or words to that effect, and I feel like I now need to explain why I'm taking the position that I am. So that's my reasoning.
This legislation, we all predicted would have difficult consequences in the chamber, right? I think Councillor Castro, you talked about how a system like this was set up years ago and led to all manner of dysfunction. I'm not saying this is dysfunctional behaviour, but it's regrettable. Yeah, yeah. Not a great situation. Anyway, Councillor O'Neill?
I have seconded this, and I feel confident in the fact that the donation is a minor amount compared to what is prescribed conflict of interest declaration, and also that amount was the last amount was 2016, which is 5 years ago. So, and I'm confident that that Councillor Gates her integrity is beyond reproach. I know how she works, and I'm quite happy to second that motion.
Of course, Councillor Gates.
I just need to clarify what I actually said to Councillor Caldwell, because he's made a suggestion that I said he's changed, and that's not. I said I have noticed a change in attitude, not specifically relating to him, but that's everyone's right to decide. And I came up to you before this meeting and offered to leave the room for this or put the declaration forward, and it's such a minor thing. And it's crazy to think that a councillor walks out of a meeting over a declaration that I've made. It's in your hands, councillors, and I've made the declarations, and I'm happy to abide by whatever decision you make. But there has been a slight change in the attitude of the council, and I quite understand it. And I said that. I said I understand it. So I'm just disappointed that we've arrived at this place today, because I certainly didn't mean any insult to anyone, and nor am I able to do that under the Act, and I get that. It's just very unfortunate.
Yeah, look, Councillor Gates, just observing from the chair, I think we all come into this chamber attempting to do our absolute best and work with the rules that we have, and we always put matters in our colleagues' hands. And I think you've been very open that it's a decision for the room and that you're happy either way. So, which is why I informed the council of both declarations before we start, because I thought the second one may influence. So I totally get it. Yeah, no, too easy. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Tozer?
Are you happy for me to close?
Unless there are further questions, councillors? No, any other speakers against? No, I'm happy for you to close, Councillor Tozer.
Thanks, Councillor Forster. Look, I actually have taken a different view in relation to this. So I think this donation, the motion before us is quite clear. I agree with it. I'm going to support the motion. But I think there's an element here that the public interest is served for agricultural providers or agricultural land users to have their incumbent arrangements honoured. There's actually a public interest in relation to making sure that continual economic impact occurs. It is public land, but to actually displace this, what I would assume is a relatively long-term operator of a land use on a council land to reduce maintenance costs for the council, it makes more sense for us to continue that rather than displace them and start over and go through a new lease process. Frankly, the public interest is served by Councillor Gates both participating in this decision, and also I don't think the conflict of interest as described undermines any public interest, and it's right for her to be here for this decision, and on top of that it's actually right for us to ultimately maintain the status quo when it comes to leasing or existing land to reduce the cost of the management of that land on the ratepayer.
Thanks, Councillor Tozer, for putting those reasons on the record. Councillors, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? We've got Councillor Belden Lumsden, Councillor Lacastre, Councillor Tozer, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Gates did not vote, and I'll be in the negative, only because Councillor Tozer's words, I think, should have been captured in the motion itself, because I think that provides the best defence. Yep. And that motion is carried. Happy days. They should call it Rocky Motion. That was a Rocky Motion horror show. Anyway, we got there. That's all right. Now everyone can interrogate me. Councillors, with respect to item 7.2, it's a closed session item that deals with the Gold Coast Tourist Parks investment plans update. Now, in the last little while, I've flagged that through my wife, we've come to know Tony and Nikki Wilson, who operate a holiday park in Nobby Beach, or Nobby's Beach? Nobby Beach. That's been identified as a development site. Council has, on many occasions, voted to permit me to participate in decisions concerning that development site. I just want to flag with the council that obviously they are market participants in the tourist parks sector, and if councillors wish to move a procedural motion to deal with any perceived conflict of interest, I'm happy to entertain it. I did not plan on making a declaration myself because it's just far too remote in my thinking. Councillor Tozer.
It doesn't appear they're mentioned in the report at all. And it doesn't appear that they are a party to any of the subsequent actions of council at this stage. Great. Yeah, there's nothing as far as I can see.
As Councillor Gates referred to, things have kind of, the mood's changed. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, great. So that deals with item 4, mercifully. We can now deal with item 6.2. Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Chair. I just unstarred this just for the sake of actually moving it because it's... Yeah, thank you. The late Les Ferguson is aptly described in the report as a tireless worker, coach, groundsperson and a true gentleman, and that he was. He coached for 35 years in both cricket and AFL. He was the cricket curator at the pitch at Merv Craig Oval there for the last 15 years. He was very well regarded, and you can see by the letters of support from both the Rugby League, who use those grounds as well, and the cricket and Cricket Gold Coast, how well respected he was. So, and I have no problem at all as putting forward some funds through my LAW. So I think it's a fitting tribute to the man, and I'm sure his family will be very, very, very touched. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Neill, and I just want to flag my absolute personal support for this move, and also just to point to the fact that it is a very special honour for the city to formally recognise someone in this way. And I know from time to time we get approached by sporting clubs with all sorts of grandiose plans to rename things for sponsors, for example, but I think we should hold the line and reserve this particular type of honour for people who have really served over time, and it's great to be able to do that today with this motion. Councillors, any speakers against the motion? No, that would just not be cricket. Any other speakers for? No. You happy to close, Councillor O'Neill? All right, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried.
Oh, I did.
Councillors, we now have item 7.1. It's a closed session item. Were there any questions that any councillor might have concerning this that might put us into close, or would someone like to move the motion?
I'm happy to move the motion.
Councillor Tozer, happy to move it. Do I have a seconder? Oh. Councillor O'Neill. Too easy. All right. Yeah, absolutely.
To do these through council? Is there a reason why this comes to council when it's an extension of an existing lease?
Through the chair, it is considered best practice for these things because it formally endorses this.
There's not a delegation to do that?
Potentially we could. The recommendation before me was to actually bring it to council, given the value and the context of the lease.
Okay.
Councillor Gates, though, you do raise a really good point. I know the CEO, with respect to another matter, expressed a desire to bring things to council because of the threshold of the value of the contract. It'd be useful to me, and I'm sure to you, to know what that threshold is. Councillor Owen Jones?
I actually don't think the threshold here is high enough to warrant it coming to council. I would have thought that the better reason for it coming to council today is the threshold value of the property that the city acquired for redevelopment over the coming years. So I think the advantage of it coming to council is that there is a little bit more transparency in regards to the leasing encumbrance over the development of that property over time. But the actual dollar amount is best described as minor. You know, so we probably get more value from savings in regards to the control of weeds on the property than we do in regards to generating income for the city.
So, Director, I'm not sure if it should come from you or Property Services or potentially the CEO, and I'm certainly not providing you direction, but I'm simply asking the question as an acceptable request, what the basis may have been for bringing this matter to council. Tony.
Through you, through you, Chair. I'm just looking at the resolution number 2 that with regards to if there's a delegation that actually allows us to do that, I understood it not necessarily about thresholds, but about the allowance for us to extend a lease without going to market. Again, so that was the premise for us bringing the report to council. Whether or not there's a delegation that allows us to do that, I'll have to take that on notice and follow that one up.
Whatever the circumstances might be, I'm sure there's good reason for the recommendation, but it would be good for us to understand that so that we can anticipate how we might need to change policy or manage DCOIs for future matters, right? Because, Councillor Gates.
Explain further. And I suggested that I might like to stay in the room. The report contains those numbers, and there's actually a significant benefit to council and the ratepayers for having these people on the property and not spending the very large amount that would otherwise be required for vegetation control. So it's a win for the council, not for the person that, anyway.
It's like the cows on the green heart. You know, like there's same thing. It's great to have them there. Councillor Hamill.
Through you, Chair, to
Except
Tony. I just noted, I hadn't seen the lease term that was proposed. That's probably fine for this time around, but did they flag at all an issue that maybe for a lease in the future they would need a longer one if they have to plant new cane on blocks? That shorter lease period wouldn't be commercially viable if they have to replant cane at any stage?
And so before you answer that, would that be a point that may warrant us moving into closed? Yep,
if we were to discuss that term, correct?
Yeah, sure. So would someone have an appetite to move us into close? So Councillor Hamill can move Councillor Gates. So I have a seconder. Councillor Tozer. All right, I'll put that to a vote. And just for those tuning in at home, the reason for moving into closed is that we're dealing with negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving the local government for which a public discussion would likely be prejudicial to the interests of the local government, i.e. the ratepayer. Put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Welcome back, viewers. If we could open the public gallery. So that was moved by Councillor Tozer and Councillor Gates. Great. All right, councillors. I'm just trying to think, did we have a mover for the substantive recommendation? Councillor Tozer, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Councillors, any further questions? No, any speakers against? No? Councillor Tozer, would you like to close?
Without wanting to go into any of the commercial details, what this effectively does is manage effectively the maintenance of land by a lease and licence to a commercial third party, and it reduces the cost to the ratepayer to maintain that land until we choose to do what we might choose to do with it in the future.
Great, thank you. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And all those against? And if we could record that, Councillor that's carried, and if we could record Councillor Gates voted in the affirmative. Councillors, we're now dealing with item 7.2. Was there any appetite for a presentation? Would you like a presentation, Councillor Owen Jones? I had some questions.
So yes, and I think you might need to go to close because I'm interested in the capital cost, not only at the park that was identified in the report, but of the cumulative capital cost over the coming years for the balance of the park. So I think you're probably better off having the presentation enclosed and then the question, because I don't think you can do both.
No, yeah, totally happy with that. And if a director and management team could also, when responding to those questions, just talk to the funding source as well. I think that's important. So, councillors, do I have a mover to take us into close as we're dealing with the city's budget? Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Tozer. You two are on fire today. Hey, it's good. So it's the hinterland cohort. You guys share a border, don't you?
I think it gives you the opportunity to walk from the beach all the way to
All right, councillors, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried.
Rye, way too soon.
That was very good, Ryan. What is that?
All right, to those tuning in at home, we've considered item 7.2, which is the Gold Coast Tourist Parks Investment Plans Update. We have a recommendation that is moved by Councillor Tozer and Councillor O'Neill. It's a closed session item, so there isn't much we can share with the public in open, other than to say after Council considers the recommendation, there may be elements of the report that are made non-confidential, I'm sure. Councillor Tozer, would you like to open?
There's no doubt that our tourist parks are very popular, both with visitors to our city and locals who like to stay by the beach. But we are investing in them, and in particular, the Main Beach Tourist Park is going to see some refreshment soon, and this confidential report will address that. And like I said, I've got no doubt in the coming days there'll be some pretty pictures for the public to look at.
Anyone like to speak against the motion? Any other speakers for the motion? Visitors. Here we go. I'll put that to a vote then. Councillor Tozer, I'll take it as being closed. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Director, do we have 2 GBIs or just the 1 GBI, or no GBIs to consider today? Abbott Park, I think, was...
I think we have one from Councillor Belden-Lumsden.
Okay. So, Councillor Belden, by the way, thank you very much, officers.
Thanks.
Item 8.1, general business item, Abbott Park Basketball Court. Now, is this the famous park with the toilet?
Yes, Chair, that's the one.
Okay.
This is just an existing project. Costs have just gone up from 80 to 105,000, so just looking to increase the project budget to cover those costs.
Thanks, Councillor Belden-Lumsden. Just out of interest, what's the turnaround been for this project? I'm just trying to get it in my mind across similar projects in my division.
This has been a while. I think the basketball court itself, Tony, I think it's probably been close to a year.
Yep. And is it a new basketball court or a rebuild?
So it's an existing half court that's being made into a full-size court and being surfaced.
Okay. Councillors, I'm presuming we've got a mover. Yeah. Is there a seconder for the basketball? Councillor Gates? Councillors, any further questions?
You play basketball?
Generally, constitute a conflict of interest. Councillor basketball is...
Speakers against?
I feel like I can have an open mind, Councillor.
Yeah. We don't want to end up in court.
Hey,
see, now everyone's playing ball.
I think you need a timeout.
Yay. I've got nothing else. Could make some Space Jam references. Here we go. All right, councillors, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Councillors, unless there are any other general business items, declare the meeting closed at 10:28.